Dad, we like you. We really like you. It's so nice to wake up on this day, and I can also say I was treated early this morning as well. And it is so nice to also have an opportunity to honor dads. And my heart is so full of something that I want to share with you. I've had it for quite some time in my spirit about my journey as a dad and what God revealed to me from His scriptures just about being a dad. Now, I want to give you a heads up. I want to give you a heads up at the beginning that at some point during the service, you might be feeling a little bit guilty. And you might be thinking, Harry, now you're giving us a hiding here. But I want to say it's not my heart, but I need to share with you from what I read in the Bible. And I need to share with you what God has shared with me. And I want to mention as well that a few weeks ago, it was Mother's Day. And on Mother's Day, I spoke about honoring your mother. Because the Bible has a lot to say about that, honoring. And I believe that even though we spoke about honoring your mother, it is also honoring your father as well. So if you feel a little bit bad about today's sermon, go and check out that sermon as well. You can get it on YouTube, and you can also get it on our webpage on deo.co.za, the Mother's Day sermon as well. And but today I want to share really about fathers, but I think it also will include mothers. So I'm going to mention the whole time fathers. But moms, you can also listen to this and also just allow God to speak into your life. Now, on Mother's Day, we dressed up a little bit. And today I decided to dress up a little bit as well. Because my parents, they love it when their son dresses up a little bit. So that's what we did. And John also looked really great. And Dominique as well. And the band as well. I think they also look very smart. And it's part of us honoring just parents as well. And especially dads. So I want to say today, Dad, we like you because you play a very big role in our lives. You play an incredible role. And as a matter of fact, your life story will be displayed through our lives as children. Even for my dad, we were 3 brothers. And I know that my dad has done absolutely everything that he could to help us in our life journey. And today, they have really built, or my dad has really built into our lives that we are 3 sons that are solid in our relationship with Jesus. And we are busy living out the call that God has got on our lives in different areas and in different places in the country as well. And I believe that there is something of who we are as dads is actually being displayed through our children. And I want to show this to you in the Bible. I want to show you that what I read, even at the beginning, when we go to the book of Genesis, there's a few very interesting verses. And I want to show you something about Genesis today. Now, you might have known this before, or you might not have known this before. And you might say, I'm learning something new. And I'm trusting that you will most probably learn something new today. So I want to ask you to just tell the person next to you, you're going to learn something today. And then just in your reply to that person, just tell them, yes, why do you think I brought you here today, eh? I know. So in Genesis, what is interesting that the book of Genesis, in all those chapters, it is divided into certain areas and into certain chapters that actually shows us different eras. Different eras is announced in Genesis. And I want to start off with this very interesting era, the era of Abram. And Abram, all of us would call Abram our father. We would sing that old song that says, Father Abram had many sons, and we are one of them, and so are you. And we would start off with the era of Abram. But I want to tell you that when we say we're starting off with the era of Abram, we're actually not talking about Abram. We're talking about someone else. And it's actually his era. Genesis 11, verse 27 puts it this way. He says, this is the account of a man with the name Terah. This is the account of a man of Terah's family line. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot. You see, here it starts off with the words, this is the account of, and then it gives another name, not Abram, but the name Terah. And it says that Terah was the father of Abram. And for the rest of the story, you get a very few verses of Terah, the father of Abram, and then suddenly it goes over and there's a lot of chapters about Abram. But it's so interesting that it starts off with the words, this is the account of Terah. You see, like I said earlier, we like you, Dad, because your success, who you are, is being displayed through your children and your grandchildren. See, your account is actually displayed in their lives. And I want to show you actually just a few verses later, verse 31, it says this. It says, Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot of Haran and his daughter-in-law Sarah, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. Wait a minute. Canaan. Okay. That's the promised land. Canaan, the promised land. So who was the guy that actually started going to Canaan? Oh, we would say it was Abram was the first man, but actually it was his father, Terah, that started going there. Terah started going into the direction of Canaan. And then the last part of this verse says, but when they came to Haran, they settled there. And they never got to the promised land. But the next chapter starts off with Abram being called to this promised land. And God takes Abram to the promised land. And chapter 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is everything to do with the story of Abram. Here's the account of Terah. And they tell the whole story of Abram. You see, Dad, your account is actually telling the story of your children. And therefore, even one day, my story, and this is why I say, this is what's happening in my spirit. And I said in Afrikaans, I'm not even sure if I communicated correctly, because it's so deep in my heart that I've realized, when I read the scriptures, I've realized that if one day it's going to say, here follows the account of Gary, and the rest of the story will be all about Benay. The rest of the story will be about her faith, her journey, how she found strength. And that is displayed through the way that I react towards her. And today, I think this is very important for us. That we as dads would look ahead, very far ahead. It's not about the successes of today. No, your life story will not be written into the successes and the temporary things of today. No, your life story will be written actually in the words and the story of your children. That is where the story will be. And Genesis introduces a new era where it speaks about Terah. Again, it happens a few chapters later. You would find the same thing with Abram's son Isaac. And in Genesis 25, the Bible says this is the account of the family line of Abram's son Isaac. And then there's about a chapter or so that talks a little bit about Isaac. And then the rest of the story has to do with Jacob. Then the story of Jacob starts. And again, many chapters later, in Genesis 37, The Bible again says the following in verse 2 of Genesis 37. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17. It's so interesting, and I love this verse because in the same verse, it just reflects the point so clearly that it starts off with saying, this is the account of Jacob. And then from there, it starts talking about Joseph, Jacob's son. You see, when God thinks about us, He doesn't just think about what we should do right now in this generation. No, God thinks about the influence that we will have in the generations to come. I love the fact that the Bible, so many times in the Old Testament, you will see that God is referred to as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. He didn't just connect Himself with one person. He connected Himself from generation to generation to generation. And therefore, our message, our story is we've got to think generations to come. We've got to look ahead. Dad, you've got to look ahead. We like you because your story is displayed in us. Therefore, even today, I would have to say that if you have to look at my life, actually, this right here is the account of Karel Gerhardus Steenkamp. It's not my name, it's my dad's. I'm glad I don't have all those names. But this, even what's happening on this stage, is his account. And you know, it's a bit of a mind shift, but it is the way that I had to start looking at our family. And Dad, that's the way I started looking at Benay, to realize that at the end of the day, it's not about my successes and the platforms and the podiums that I am on. No, the end of my story, or my story, will be revealed on the podium that Benay gets on. You see, she needs to get onto the podium. And when she gets onto the podium, it talks about me. That is my story. And Genesis displays that, you know, in a great, great way. We see through every era. Started off with Terah, the account of Terah, displayed through Abraham. The account of Isaac, displayed through Jacob. The account of Jacob, displayed through Joseph. And this is important for us because we can become so short-sighted. We can be caught up in this world of success. We can be caught up in this, what do I have just for today? And we forget that it echoes even past us. Even past us. And I think, dads, the greatest thing that we can do is to uplift our children and to uplift them onto the podiums. To uplift them onto the podiums that God has for them. Because it speaks about you. It's going to speak about you. Your victory is only when they get on the podium. Not when you're on the podium. That's when your victory starts. Oh, and I love it. I love the fact that it is displayed in the most beautiful father relationship in the universe as well. We would sing the songs. You're a good, good father. But the greatness of the Father was displayed through the podium of the Son. That's why we say He's a good, good Father. Because the greatness of the Father is displayed through the podium of the Son. And we see in the Bible, we see the Father heart of God towards us displayed through His Son, but we also see something really special on two occasions where God the Father spoke to other people about His Son, Jesus. We see it. See in the Bible at two occasions. Firstly, at the baptism of Jesus. The baptism of Jesus. And I just want to read it to you through the paraphrase of Eugene Peterson in the Message. At the baptism of Jesus, when Jesus came out of the water, the Father spoke publicly to others. And this is His words in the Message. This is my Son, chosen and marked by my love, delight of my life. Oh, what a public confession, what a public affection, what a public statement. When the God, our Father, spoke about His Son to someone else at the baptism. And then there is another occasion where it happened again. When God the Father spoke to the disciples, to Peter, James, and John on the Mount of, is it Configuration? Is that the right word? Transfiguration. On the mountain of Transfiguration, in that moment, again, this is what God the Father said to them. This is my Son, marked by my love. Listen to Him. What a public statement. What a great way to talk about His Son. And you know, if you have to ask me today, Gary, that it's great to hear that my account is being displayed through my children, but what should I do with my kids? What should I do? Then I just want to use these words that God the Father spoke to others. And I want to say the first thing that helps children to walk into the destiny and the call that God has for their lives, the first thing that they must know from you as a dad is they must know, I belong. You see, the Father said to others, this is my Son. This is mine. Oh, this is mine. And you know what? Benay needs to know in our house that she's mine. Not in a negative way, but she needs to know that she's a steenkamp. That's who she is. And she needs to know, yes, I get an amen for steenkamps. That's great. Okay. And she needs to know. Every now and then I would go up to her and tell her that she's a steenkamp. And I would sometimes go to her toes and I would take her toe and I would say, it's mine. It's mine. And we have a big thing about that because she's convinced it's hers. I'm convinced it's mine. But at the end of the day, you know, I want her to know that she's mine. She belongs. See, she's not just an orphan. She belongs somewhere. And dads, that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do if you want to see your life being displayed through the generations to come. Make sure that your children and your grandchildren know who they belong to. First of all, to God. Secondly, the security that you bring in that family. And the Father said, Jesus belongs. The second thing is that a child should know, I am loved. He said, this is my Son whom I love. Or this is my beloved Son. It's not just mine. It's not just part of me, but I'm a little bit, I don't want to mention, I don't want anybody to know about this son of mine. I'm not ashamed of you. I want everybody to know that I love you. It's like I heard about this one guy that they said they were looking to put up a family tree, and then they went to this guy that would put it all together and give descriptions to everybody, and they said, well, we're a little bit ashamed of, our uncle. He actually got electrocuted because of a murder and so on. So we don't want that in our family. We're ashamed of that. Will you be able to just in the wording do something there? And he said, yeah, sure, don't worry. And when the whole thing came out, he just said, this is Uncle so-and-so being part of the family, and his death just came with a very big shock to everybody. Okay? It's the way that we change our words because we feel a little bit ashamed. I think they say it is Mark Twain that said, I spend a lot of money trying to find out who my extensive family is, and it cost me double that amount to make sure that nobody finds out who they are at the moment I knew. It's sometimes like that with families, But we as parents has got to say that I'm proud of you. I love you. It doesn't matter what you went through. I love you, you belong, and I love you. It's that security that we've got to bring to our children. And the third thing that is just in this part is it says that I am special. I don't just love you, I like you as well. Oh, we've got to love everybody, but I like you as well. I am special. Oh, when it says delight of my life. I love those words in the Message. Delight of my life. Oh, everything inside of me leaps when it comes to my children. And Benay needs to know that about me, that she's the delight of my life. And that's the way that the story, that your account, your story will be written. See, that's how we're going to lift them up to the podiums. I want to end off with a story that I read about that guy, James Ryle. See, I read a book about leadership and uplifting people, and there was just a spark that spoke to me when it comes to parenting. Where this guy actually said that we have one of two choices. We can either build podiums, or we can build something else. But before I tell you the second choice, let me tell you his story. So James Ryle is a pastor. He's a pastor in America. He's part and also ministering with Promise Keepers. And this is his background. At the age of 6, he was an orphan and he went into an orphanage. One of the biggest reasons for him to be in the orphanage was that his dad went to prison. And when his dad went to prison, everything just fell apart. And then, round about the age of 18 or 19, he found himself in trouble, in so much trouble, that he ended up in prison himself. But in that time in prison, he got to a point where he heard the gospel message of Jesus. He got saved. And when he got saved, he had this passion and this drive for Jesus so much that he started studying to become a pastor, and he became a pastor in his life. But even being a pastor, he decided that one of the things that he wanted to do was to find his dad. He wanted to look up his dad and see if he can find him. And then he writes about the meeting that he had with his dad. And I think there was a lot more after this meeting. But in this particular first encounter meeting with his dad, he writes about it, and there's something in this paragraph that he explains that is so beautiful that I want to read to you. And I'm going to read his words. So just listen to this. As he was meeting with his dad as a pastor now, wanting to find out a little bit more about his dad and want to be inspired also for his ministry and maybe even for his preaching. It says this. As they were sitting, James asked his dad, "Dad, which prison were you in?" His dad replied, "I was in the central unit." He replied, unaware of all that was lingering behind my question. The moment I heard his answer, my countenance dropped. It was not the same prison unit I had been in. I had thought for sure it was going to be the same, and I had envisioned preaching rousing sermons about being in the same prison that your father was in. You know, the old thing, like father, like son thing. So he said, he asked his dad basically, in what prison? Because he envisioned, wow, if we were at different times in the same prison, it's the like father, like son thing. But they were not in the same prison. And he said he was actually disappointed. But none of this mattered now. His answer changed all. And then while they were sitting together, his dad asked him a question. His dad said, "Son, which prison were you in?" He then asked me, not knowing how my mind was racing. Somewhat dejected, I replied, "I was in the Ferguson unit near Midway, Texas." My dad's expression changed immediately. He went from being curious to being stunned. His mouth dropped open and he looked at me in a disbelief. And then gathering himself, he then said the words that would forever mark my life. "Dear God, my son, I built that prison." "What?" I replied. "What do you mean you built it?" And his father said, "They used prison labor to build the Ferguson unit," Dad answered. "I was the welder on the work crew. I welded the bars when that prison was built." Now if you listen to the story, for us as dads, we can either build podiums for our children to stand on. We can either build podiums or we can build prisons. You see, at the end of the day, my story, here is the account of Gary. He built a prison for his daughter, or he built a podium for her to stand on. You can choose. What do you want to build? What do you want to build, Dad? It is your acknowledgement. Yeah, but they know I love them. They know I'm busy. They know I want to say all your busyness is not being put with your account. It is what happens in their lives that will be put on your account. You have to know that you can either build a prison or you can build a podium. And I know that we're a variety of people here. We have different backgrounds, and I don't say today that I have got it perfectly right. I want to say I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm trying it. I mean, Benay's only 5 now. She's not a teenager yet. She doesn't have all the things that, all the mood swings and stuff that teenagers will have. I don't know. I might get there. So I get this. But one thing I learned from this story, I learned that the most important thing is for me to be free. Because James's dad was building his prison while he was in prison. You see, it's our background. It's sometimes our story with our dads. It's sometimes our story with our families. It's sometimes the prison that was built for us. That without knowing it, we end up building prisons for our children and not podiums. And I believe that first of all today, first of all, dads, we like you. First of all. But you have to be set free from your own prison so that you don't build prisons for your children and for the generations to come. But that you can build podiums for them to stand on. Will you just close your eyes with me?